What is up, Pitt fans? Thank you so much for tuning into Inside the Panthers on YouTube. My name is Stephen Thompson, coming at you with another Inside Pitt practice report on this kind of our last check-in before a pretty hectic weekend in Pitt sports. We've got two basketball games and a football game between Friday, when this will go up, and Monday after Monday evening. So we're diving to all of the stuff that you need to know heading into this weekend as the Panthers, like I said, get set for a busy week. And we'll start with the football side of things. We had our final roundtable kind of fireside chat with Pat Narduzzi of the season. Usually we have those every Thursday, but next week there's a Thursday game. Week after is Thanksgiving. So this is our last chance to really sit down and ask him some questions in a more intimate setting than his typical Monday press conferences or a post-game press conference. And during what I'd say was a somewhat sleepy presser, especially compared to some of the others that we've had this season with Coach Narduzzi. Everyone's ears perked up at a really good question from Chris Peak of Pantherlair.com. I assume if you're watching this, you know who that guy is, and you've listened to him and probably even seen this quote. But I'll make sure to read it for you entirety because it's a good question and a good answer, very relevant to where the Panthers are headed right now. So I'll start here quoting Chris Peak. This is his question. Quote, it's not all that uncommon nowadays for a head coach to make a coaching changes midseason. You haven't done that over the past 9 years, but do you think with the way things are now, things happen so fast at the end of the season, transfer portal, you have to move quickly. Do you see that shifting in the sport, and is that something that you've found yourself considering because things move so quickly at the end of the year? Narduzzi's response was, quote, number one, we're worried about Syracuse, not worried about the chaos or the outside things that happen. We're just worried about our kids and what we do in this program and nothing else. There's nothing that's going to speed us up and how we do things and what we do here at Pitt. Okay, you can kind of let your groans out now. I'll give you a second. But yeah, Frank Signetti and everyone else on the staff will get 3 more games to prove their worth before the Panthers presumably have some tough decisions to make. I don't think this actually really says anything about whether or not what Narduzzi thinks about his assistant coaching staff, nor does it mean he won't let anyone go at the end of the year. I think he's deflecting a little bit and truly saying that we're just putting this off until the end of the season. He's truly just giving everyone a little bit more time. I think this is just kind of simply a reflection of who Narduzzi is as a coach and as a manager of people, just philosophically. You've seen it with players to a certain extent. Now you're seeing it with coaches too. He sticks by people. And I think at his very core, he believes that there should still be some kind of general sense of honor or sportsmanship, respect, general decency, whatever you want to call it, in an industry that is, not to sound too high and mighty or like, old man yells at cloudish, but in an industry that has thrown that to the wayside in a lot of ways for the sake of winning. I mean, and for the sake of results. I mean, there are plenty of examples, and so none of these I think are particularly nefarious, but they represent a reality, a changing reality in the sport. I mean, Indiana fired their offensive coordinator in October. Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator, is out at USC as of this week, and I believe as of this week, if I get my timing right. Brian Ferentz, the offensive coordinator at Iowa, was told that he can finish out the year, but they will not be retaining him. This stuff is more common. Chris was exactly right in his question, and I mean the more that it happens, the more it makes you wonder. Okay, we've seen pretty similar results from Frank Signetti, and other people have argued for other offensive coaches. Particularly offensive coaches. I don't think anyone's really going after the defensive coaches this season, but after seeing some kind of similar results at a certain point, you have to cut your losses somewhere. And again, to Peake's question, stuff does move quickly in this sport, and player retention moves quickly, and is such an important part of what you do in the offseason that this is something to consider. And it's something that teams clearly do consider when they are thinking about what they want going into next year and how quickly they want to get a jump on, making changes. And so that's something that Pitt has certainly had to think about, but it's clearly not a decision or any set of decisions that Pat Narduzzi wants to make immediately. Moving on a bit to something a little bit more positive, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Solomon DeShields. We've talked to His linebackers coach, we talked to DeShields himself this week, and then we talked to Pat Narduzzi about him as well. And it's hard to argue that anyone on Pitt's defense has had a better season than Solomon DeShields has, or at least taken as dramatic a step forward. He has 45 total tackles. That's third on the team, 8 of them for a loss. That's first on the team. And he has 2 sacks, which are tied for third on the team. Those are career highs in all of those categories. In the past has been, especially last year, been a little bit better of a coverage linebacker, but this year he's really getting downhill, playing physically, and wreaking some havoc in the backfield. He's still relatively young, just a redshirt junior. This is only his second year really in the rotation and first year as a starter, so he's got another year or two, I think, with the COVID year to stay in the program should he so choose. But at this rate, it's no guarantee he stays beyond next year. Pat Narduzzi was pretty adamant. I'll read you a quote in a second that he's going to be back next year and he's really excited about it. But it's funny to think, I guess for Narduzzi, from Narduzzi's perspective, because he told us a pretty funny story about DeShields on Thursday, a little over a year into his time at Pitt. DeShields said he wanted to play receiver, and it took him a minute before he was able to kind of find his way back. And Pat Narduzzi thought that was a real linchpin to him getting so much better and having the kind of season that he's had this year. I'll read this quote from Narduzzi. Quote, when he finally put it in his mind that he was going to be a linebacker, that's when you start to see him rise. He had a good year. He's had a good year, and he's going to be even better next year. Close quote. I think DeShields is really a shining example of what this program wants to be and what they want this program to be made up of in terms of players. It's a 3-star talent that you take in and you help them learn the system while developing them, and then once they're old enough and experienced enough, most of these guys can then really outplay their recruiting rankings. And I think that's what DeShields has done. He had some high level offers. I think Oregon, Missouri, Oklahoma State, Minnesota, Michigan State. Those were some of the schools after him. But he chose Pitt, and I feel like that's been a really good decision for him. I think there are some programs out there that when he wasn't really able to break the rotation until into his sophomore year, that would maybe have allowed him to make that switch to receiver and pushed him more towards that. But they stuck with him. They saw a really good athlete and a physical guy. And talking to Coach Manilek, Ryan Manilek, the linebackers coach this week, he said, the physical tools have always been there, but now DeShields, that he's older, he's started to put together the mental side of it and being a real complete linebacker. And I think that's what you've seen come out on the field this year. So a big positive for Pitt in that sense. And hope they can retain him in the offseason, make sure no one comes diving in to try to steal him away. But I don't think that's likely, and I think they're really excited about what he can be for them going forward, especially with presumably Shane Simon leaving the program at the end of this year. And shifting gears a little bit to round out this episode, we're going to talk a little hoops. It's something that's probably going to be a little bit more common over the next 3 weeks as we round up football season and basketball season heats up. There are going to be some more crossover episodes, and this is one of them. So we're going to talk about Pitt's next game. I mentioned that Friday game against Binghamton. Binghamton comes to the Pete this weekend. Another mid-major that Pitt should probably beat. They'll be favored by a lot and everything, but I would say don't underestimate this Binghamton team, and also don't underestimate what kind of test they can be for the Panthers and what we can maybe learn about them. This is a much better test than a North Carolina A&T that's a little disjointed, dealing with some injuries, a coaching change, I believe, and then even just, from the jump, they're not super talented to begin with, even by the standards of their own station in the sport and just where they are as a low major. Binghamton, very different challenge. Older, love to run. They're guard-centric out of design, not necessarily necessity, like A&T, who was turning over a big part of their roster. You'll remember Samir Torrance, formerly of Syracuse. He was really good in the opener. I believe scored 12 points, efficient shooting night, had a few rebounds, good athlete. And in that opener against Northwestern, they held a lead at halftime. Binghamton did, before ultimately losing by just about 11. I mean, this is also a team that was picked to finish fourth in the America East. There's some talent here. There's some experience that I think they really love and can make them competitive within their conference. So, obviously not, the 10th or something, 6th worst team, I think, in Ken Palm. That's what A&T was going into that game on Monday, the season opener. So this is very different, I think, from that sense. Just an overall better team, but also a good matchup to really test these Panthers. I think the combination of experience and pace, and then also the guard heaviness, is really going to test Carlton Carrington, Jalen Lowe, those young guys, and then even Leggett as well. Like how good he can be as a pure defender. He was really good in the season opener, but he'll get tested a little bit more. I think Pittsburgh should be able to own the paint again, but I'm eager to see how they respond to a team that can really get out and run. Can they rebound well enough to control the ball and control the boards, control possession? Can they communicate enough, well enough on defense to be strong in a scramble drill or when they're coming back on defense? And then obviously, can those three guards keep up? Carrington is definitely going to get tested a lot more than he was when he had his triple double in the opener, and Low. I think I said in my post game report that I thought he looked better, a little more confident in this game, but can he continue to make those steps as the competition heats up and gets starts to challenge them a little more? Just how ready is this team, not just Low in particular, but the entire team ready as this competition starts to get better? Because Florida Gulf Coast is going to bring a pretty good team into this stadium, into this city on Monday, and I believe it's Monday. Yeah, Monday, and then later, after I can't remember exactly who's next up on the schedule after Gulf Coast, but then they hit a stretch of I believe 5 straight against Power Five opponents, and then you get a little bit of a respite before ACC play begins, the real thing. So, all those questions I asked are all kind of boils down to how ready are they to get challenged, and we're going to find out at the Pete on Friday night as the Panthers host Binghamton, 7 p.m. tip-off on the ACC Network Extra. But if you can't watch that live, if you can't catch the football team's game in New York City at Yankee Stadium against Syracuse, you can make sure to stay tuned with us through the end of this week and into next for some more insight and analysis of the Panthers, both football and basketball. To get that all, make sure you like this video and subscribe to us on YouTube. That's youtube.com/@InsideThePanthers. And then find all of our reporting at InsideThePanthers.com. Appreciate you all tuning in to another Inside Pitt Practice Report. Thanks for listening. And until next time, I'll see you.